I remember there was a time when my first shipment was coming in of Whizzers, and I got the customs bill through, and it was like £1,000, and I was like, this could be the end of it. Like, how can I pay that, get the stock released? It's going to be the end of me then.
I'm joined today by Zoe Chapman, the solo founder behind KiddyWhiz. She is here to share her incredible story of grit and fortitude and explain how she risked it all to bring her invention, the Whizzer, to market. A single mum, she shouldered a huge financial risk when she began building KiddyWhiz from her one-bedroom flat, but her portable kids loo was the solution to a perennial problem for parents everywhere, leading her to secure investment from not just one but two dragons in the den. Stay tuned to hear how she turned her idea into an award-winning, eco-friendly solution that parents simply can't leave the house without, and how you too can defy the odds and grow a unique and successful business. Welcome, Zoe.
Hi. Finally.
Hi.
So nice to be here.
Finally. Together in our remote studio. So nice to have you here. Thank you for making the time.
No, it's my pleasure. Really, my pleasure.
So we met virtually, I think right in the middle of the pandemic, and you sent me an email saying that you were just starting a business. Do you want to tell me a bit about what happened during the pandemic? What was the idea you had, and what on earth convinced you to launch it right in the middle of a global disaster? Tell us how it all started.
Well, actually, it took quite a while to get to that point. So I actually invented the product, or it came to my mind while I was potty training my son. I was also looking after my dad as well. So he was wheelchair bound and then bed bound. He'd had a stroke in 2004. So I'd had care and responsibilities for about 12 years until he passed away. So I was very aware of the medical side of things to do with toileting, and then add into the mix my son's potty training, which at the time I didn't realise he had a hormone deficiency, which meant that he needed to go to the toilet all the time, constantly. So with the pair of them, between the pair of them, I was looking for this toilet solution, something that I could carry around that was leak proof, wasn't a huge potty, and I just couldn't find anything. It wasn't the days where things were as accessible as they are now. Social media wasn't as big as it is now, with everyone linking products and talking about products and things like that. So the options were limited. It was a case of like, what's on the shelves of Boots, and there still is nothing like my product. So in that time, up until the pandemic, I'd had this idea. I'd even named it. I'd drawn pictures. I'd approached various different angles to see if it was ever a possibility, but the funding aspect of manufacturing a product is like so huge that there is a reason why only big brands get that far. So I was kind of always put off by that, being a single mum and, in financial difficulty at the best of times. It just wasn't feasible. So then fast forward to the pandemic, 2019, I'd just had major spinal surgery, and it had given me this, like, all of a sudden, you have these kind of moments where you're like, okay, I've gone from like being in constant pain, like crying every day through this pain, and then next minute I'm like, I can walk, I can sit down, I can do all this stuff that was just not, I just thought would never ever, I'd never get there. And I did. And then so during the pandemic was like this recovery period for me. And it made me think, well, what is it that I've always wanted to do? And for me, it was like that thing of every time I did walk into Boots, am I going to see a product similar to my idea on the shelves? And if I did, I couldn't imagine how I'd feel other than just totally torn apart emotionally. And so if I was going to try anything, that would be the thing to do. And then just by chance, I got an email from my local council, and they were like, we're doing this business school. It's free to join. It's like a 2-week program for bootstrap businesses. No business plan needed. This is the date, sign up. It's the sign up date was the first date back after the pandemic for schools. So I literally like dropped my son to school for the first day back, and I was like, right, ready. So I logged on to this. It was online as well, so perfect for me. And logged on, and it was the Rebel Business School, who you know, and they were so like mesmerizing and like enthusiastic, and like, you know, they were like, you don't need this business plan, you don't need that, like all these things that I'd feared about starting a business and that put me off about starting a business. They were like, don't need any of that, don't need any, you can do this. And I was just like, yeah, I could do this. And they made me believe in myself so much that by the second day I was like, do you know what? Being online just is not enough. I need to be in the room. How do I get to you? And they were literally like up the road. So I was like, I went in and I was just like, so I could soak up like all their information firsthand. And by the end of the 2 weeks, I had contacted the manufacturer I'd reached out to all the contacts that I had but was always scared to ask for help. And within about a month, I had like my first samples getting going. I'd used the social media group network that I'd built and over the previous few years within the single mum network I'd formed. I used all that experience of being front of camera and like that whole journey type thing. I then moved that onto a brand new Kiddie-Whiz Instagram page, and I kind of used that to take this like community of mums and people that I knew would support me on this journey. So that's how I got going. So it was literally, I had nothing, and everything that happened was shared online on my Instagram page, down to like, right, I'm designing the packaging now, guys. Like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Like, should I, my logo, whatever it was, I was like, okay, I need your help. What are we thinking? And then even when I got my sample of the Whizzer, the first samples I sent out to all the single mums, I was just like, whoever wants one, whoever wants to test one, send me your address.
No, absolutely. But you had a kind of bigger challenge, because you mentioned you're a single mom, which already means that you have these responsibilities that are solely yours, that rest on your shoulders. And you also mentioned that you didn't have the money really to do this. So talk me through sort of the scale of the challenge in terms of like the things that your brain said, reasons why I can't or shouldn't do this, and then how you overcame those one by one, I guess.
Yeah, it literally was one by one, because I remember writing, I have to have things very visual and in front of me. So I literally did that. I wrote a list right at the start, and I was like, these are the things that I have to tackle. Things like IP, for example. If I do this and I want to get my invention out there, I need, as soon as I do that, it can't be a slow burner. I need to make sure that I'm going all out, because once it's out there, and if it is popular, and if it is, I need to make sure that if anyone comes and takes my idea, that I was clearly there first, you know, and I've made enough noise to make sure that, and the problem is that when you are bootstrapped, you know, ideally you'd want to get the product out there, and you'd want to do like Facebook ads, and you want to pay for advertising, like all the kind of things. But unfortunately, I had to focus all the funds on the manufacturing. So that meant like you say, the financial aspects. I maxed out every credit card I had, and I built up this, like, I was really green as it comes on the credit check front, you know. And I had a literally My mum used to take the mick out of me, still does. But I had like this wad of credit cards. Shout out to anyone that's bipolar, because that is one of the pros, the fact that you can be stuck indoors and do absolutely nothing with your life, yet these massive surges of spending habits mean that one day you might decide to book a flight somewhere or make a huge purchase impulsively. And as a result, I ended up working up this credit and having all these credit cards that had massive funds available on them. So when it came to it, I was like, well, that's my only option right now. They gave me it. They gave me these limits, so I'm going to use them. And I did.
Wait. How deep into the hole did you go? Like, when you add up all these credit limits, how big are we talking?
Well, one of them, they'd given me like nearly 10 grand on one of them. Like, I mean, that was silly, wasn't it? I was like a single mom on benefits. Like, why would you allow that? And then, so I had like, I mean, it was a Virgin credit card, so I couldn't get a Virgin business loan because I'm terrible at filling out those forms and doing all the business things. They have such a long list of requirements, the Virgin business stuff, and that's like quite a normal path to go down, I think. But I couldn't do that. I wasn't eligible for loans or grants or anything like that. So luckily Virgin helped me out in a different way by giving me a massive credit limit, and Tesco's. I mean, all those years of saving up club card points and using I had two Tesco's credit cards, all those points and petrol, it paid off, because I think I got another 10 grand out of them. But so it was kind of all just like racking up basically, and I just hit them all at once. And what I'd do is, I'm quite savvy like that. I would just do like balance transfers. This is a really bad way of explaining. Please don't blame me if you take this route, okay? Disclaimer.
Nobody else follow Zoe here.
Don't do this.
Just rack up loads of debt and transfer it from one card to another. Just no. This is so high risk.
No, it's so high risk. And the thing about it is it's like, when I look back on like, I couldn't stop, because everyone's like, oh, you just work day in, day out, night in, night out. I'm like, yeah, because I had to, because if this failed, I'd racked up so much debt, I would never pay that back. So it was like I didn't give myself a chance to fail. Like, it was like I had to do this. And so that's ultimately what funded it all. And I don't think I paid off. I remember paying off the last credit card, and that was after Dragon's Den. And it was like, oh, I'm credit card debt free. Yay. So, but that was a risk the entire time. So I can't tell you the amount of times I panicked when I was like, oh my God, the 9 month is over, or whatever it is, that deadline date. And I'm like, I have to pay that back. But it all went into manufacturing and IP, every penny of it. Nothing for me, nothing for anything else. That I had to prioritize that. So I couldn't even put like £10 behind Facebook ads a day or something like that. I didn't have that. So it was that thing of constantly thinking outside of the box with the digital footprint and making sure that my invention was out there. That's why I had to use all these alternative methods, like constantly pitching. I was pitching all the time, constantly.
But what did you survive on then, Zoe? Because if you're putting this money, you're kind of taking credit out and then ploughing it all into manufacturing and IP, then how do you and your son, how do you survive in this kind of crazy universe?
Honestly, like when I look back on it, okay, so for one, you got to take into consideration the fact that I grew up with no money, right? So I was working 2 jobs by the age of 14, and we'd grown up on the breadline, poorer than the families on our estate that had benefits, and yet I'd watched my parents grafting all the time. Like, so I already had it in me that I would always be working, right? So whether I was studying and I was a waitress, like I did the worst jobs imaginable, but I was used to living off nothing. Plus the fact, because of like my mental health and stuff, like I don't go out, like I don't leave the house. So it's not like I have a social life that I have to fund. I don't smoke, I don't drink alcohol, like those big things. I don't have family to have to buy loads of Christmas presents, whatever it is. All those typical things that you would think that you have to spend on. I didn't have that. So any penny I had was just really for essentials. And I had my neighbour. These are the times when I remember my neighbour, my 80-year-old neighbour who supported me from day one. She used to come round with like bread, milk, biscuits, like those little essentials when I literally couldn't even afford that. And so I remember there was times where it was like, I got an offer of sending, say, like a product out to like a celebrity or someone that I thought that would be able to like promote it, and I'd be like, oh my god, can I afford the postage to send out my product? Because really the only thing I had of value was the Whizzer. That was the value. I had boxes of this stuff in my house taking up every corner, boxes of Whizzers, and essentially that was tens of thousands of pounds worth of value, but nothing to pay the bills or to get the shopping or whatever it was.
No cash in the bank.
No, it was always minus, which was a bizarre way of going through life, but that was the reality. It was really, really hard. So if I was ever hit with a bill, I remember there was a time when my first shipment was coming in of Whizzers, and I got the customs bill through, and it was like £1,000, and I was like, this could be the end of it. Like how can I pay that? Get the stock released. It's going to be the end of me then. And that's my neighbour, my 80-year-old neighbour, gave me the money, lent me the money, and I managed to get it out of customs. But it was always like that. It was always this like dire situation where it was like, if I don't find a way, that's it, done. Business is over, not going to progress. And even right up until I was about to air on Dragon's Den, I was like, like a month before it, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make it to the show. Like, I can't even afford to buy my own product. So I don't know how I'm going to do it. But I always think of something, somehow, at the 9th hour, whatever it is, the 11th hour.
Yeah, the 11th hour. Yeah.
9th, 11th, what? Time
at some point, I'll think of a solution.
Yeah, exactly. Right at the end, basically, in true like ADHD kind of mannerisms that I have, like always last minute.
But they do say necessity is the mother of invention, and I think that's an understatement where you come in, because it's just like that focus that comes from like, this has to work or we have nothing. I mean, that is a serious kind of catalyst to make you work every hour and stick at it. And you've mentioned being neurodivergent, and you've said bipolar and ADHD. Tell us a bit about, give us an insight into your brain, how it works, how it's been helpful. For example, when you talk about, product design, being able to envision a solution, and then also how it's been unhelpful and how it's been a challenge when you've been building this business.
To be honest, actually, it's funny because the business has made me realise what I am capable of and what I can do with it. Because prior to it, I just saw it all as the thing that held me back. There was really nothing positive that I could get out of it. I just had these constant business ideas, and they went nowhere because I'd just get ill and I couldn't do them, and I couldn't have a normal job, and everything was just so hard, and everything was just, my brain, I don't really know my brain, despite the fact that my doctor even says, like, you know yourself best, she trusts me with, so many things, even down to my medication. She's just like, I know my brain best, but equally I lose complete control of it. so many times, and it's just like, right, I don't know how to fix this. But when it did come to starting the business, and this really, the startup phase where you have to dedicate every second to it, that for me, I think that is that obsessive trait, whether it comes from the bipolar, the ADHD. I think it comes from like a mix of everything, from what I understand now, where it's just like you have this tunnel vision and you can't see anything. Like my flat would be a complete mess. I could have not even a fork or a spoon or a plate to dish Mason's dinner up on or whatever that was clean, but yet I was managing with the business to be like working around the clock and make sure that I meet every single deadline, and I'd be, appearing as this high functioning together person when the rest of my life was absolute chaos. And I've always been able to do that, and I've always been seen as this person, even when I was younger. Like, I remember my granddad used to call me Miss Can Do. And I mean, I was only like 18, 19 in those days when I was running my dad's business. And it was these things where I'd just be like, I don't know where I get it from, but I'd find this resourceful means to survive. And I think now, looking back, a lot of that does come from this strange brain that I have that makes me believe that I can be whatever it is that my brain's told me I can be or told me I can do. And when I look back on it, and I'm like, what on earth did you think? But I'll visualize these things. Like, I will visualize, and there's like, of course this will work. Like, of course this should work, definitely. And I don't know if it's a case of like some weird manifestation or something, but the obsessive part of it, I definitely think is a driving force. I think the downfalls of it is that the burnout, people talk about burnout in business, and that's when you don't have a brain as chaotic as mine. And so when you do, and I know that there's a time that I talk about with a friend of mine that I actually met at the start of running the business. She'd bought a product and found me and started following me, and we've actually become really good friends. And luckily, she reached out to me at a time when I was really struggling, and I had the first major burnout of the business, and it was just after I'd launched, and I suddenly went, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, what? I can't do this. I've suddenly saw the credit card bills, saw that I'd launched and I wasn't getting the sales that I'd visualized having, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do? And then it was like dropping off a cliff emotionally, and I was like, that's it, right? I'm done. Like completely collapsed into this, which I now know was this burnout, and was really scary, and it wasn't just about losing the business, it was about everything. I physically couldn't function as a parent, as a human, as anything. And I remember her reaching out to me and me just confiding in her, and luckily I've got a really good mental health team around me, and I was sent out, the right people to pull me through and all the rest of it. And so I managed to get over that. But that is always going to be a reoccurring thing. It doesn't matter where I am, I don't think, in the business. I've got a lifelong condition, and I have to be aware of that, and I have to try and figure out a way to feed in the fact that I'm very aware that I should get a certain amount of sleep, very aware of that, very aware that I should turn off, and I should do this, I should do that. But that's all well and good, and I can give that advice to anyone else. But am I going to take that advice, however critical I know it is? I can't say in all honesty that I do.
And was that a big kind of knock to your confidence when you experienced burnout? And I suppose if it was, how did you then build that confidence back up again? Because, you know, you have to be confident of yourself and your abilities and your business to apply for Dragon's Den, for example. So how did you get from sort of rock bottom to then build yourself back up in terms of your confidence and the faith in yourself?
That's a good question, given I've just rebuilt myself. So prior to, so a few months ago, I'd reached that point where I'd actually turned around to my son even and said, look, Mace, I'm done. Like, I'm sorry for putting you through the last 3 years of chaos. I can't do this to you anymore. Like, it's just not fair. And I'm going to look to see if I can sell the business. If I can't, then wind it down, sell all the stock and just be done with it. It's just not worth this anymore. I can't continue. And so in my mind, I'd basically just said, you know, bearing in mind, I just got Great British Entrepreneur of the Year award. And I'd obviously, at the start of the year, been on Dragon's Den. And yet I was still at that point where I can't see a way through this. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I was like, but it's fine because I've achieved so much. If I was quitting a year before, I'd be like, I can't quit now. Come on. But because I had achieved so much by that point, I was like, well, at least I can walk away with my head held high. You know, I really gave it all I could. And then something happened. I took the first break I'd ever had over Christmas. And although it was really hard to come back, I've completely lost my confidence on social media, for example. I loved the community I built over there. I've got an incredible customer base that has just watched the journey, and they will watch me packing orders with no makeup on and just like chatting like to utter rubbish, or just showing the highs and the lows and whatever. And I couldn't even face them. I couldn't go on camera. And I'd be getting messages all the time going, are you okay? Is the business all right? And I just couldn't pull back. And I think I only just went back really to social media like in the last few weeks, really. And I'm starting to build up my confidence. I love doing things like public speaking. I love sharing my story to inspire others and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm slowly getting there. I've got a new plan in place for Kiddiwiz. So even if it is at the point where I do want to move on from the business, I want to get it to a strong enough place that I can hand it over flourishing. And so that's now my new focus.
No, that's amazing advice, because it's also like, I think you have to give yourself time and not make any rash decisions when you are feeling at your lowest ebb that will then affect you for kind of the rest of your life and your business. So I think your approach will resonate with anyone that's feeling that way. Back to the social media piece. So you talk about how even before you'd launched the business, you were tapping into a network there. You were sharing all of your journey about setting up Kiddiwiz. Was that to sort of keep you honest, you know, in the way that people say, oh, I'm doing dry January or something? If you tell everyone, then it kind of forces you to do it. Or was it because you were consciously trying to market the business even early on? Tell me about sort of your mission and purpose with social media, and then what you've done that has been the most impactful in terms of, yes, maybe sales, but also brand reputation, all that good stuff.
So I think at the start, there wasn't actually really, it wasn't a motivator in terms of sales at the start. Bearing in mind, like any founder will know, when you start the journey and throughout the journey, especially as a solo founder, you've got no one to bounce ideas off. You've got no one to say, you've got this, you can do this. Like, I was at home in the middle of a pandemic with an 8-year-old. And as much encouragement as he gave me, and he watched me from the very beginning, an 8-year-old can't always provide the source of support that you might need. And I already knew I had this amazing community of single mums. And so it wasn't just them, that community of support grew. So it was women like this woman that I told you about, that I reached out to. I'd never even met in person until she came to my Dragon's Den watch party. And now it's like she will be on speed dial. She puts herself on speed dial if I ever have like that kind of a low moment again. And through meeting people like that through social media, if every time I'm feeling like, really, can I do this? Like, I need something. That was where I'd get it from, this boost. Because bearing in mind, my mum, for example, she'd said, don't do it. I remember her exact words were, it's the money pit. So I was like, right, okay, cutting you off. And I literally cut her off. Like, I was just like, until I'm at a point where, I think it was Dragon's Den when she came back into my life, and I needed the childcare. So yeah, I just cut anyone off that was negative and that wasn't going to support me, and I only let into my life people that were going to support me. And so that's where that social media aspect came in. And I think it's like, it doesn't matter if it's not creating sales. But as a result of that, I then had this army of people that were like, had seen my journey, then had the product, then loved the product. And like, it does become like a way of life. Like, there's so many times when I hear that I don't know how I lived without this product before. And that thing of like, you know, when you've got an umbrella and you're like, oh, it's that one time when I don't take the umbrella out that it pours. Like, it's that kind of a product. So when you've got people that it becomes that way of life of, oh, you pack your keys, your phone, your mobile, oh, and your whizzer. So when that's happening organically, people do just mention it to friends, mention it to family. And then it becomes that thing of, all right, well, that's a replacement for the fact that I can't pay for ads. I don't have influencers or a network on tap to go to.
And in terms of like your most popular piece of content, or the thing that you did that got the biggest reach or the most sales uplift as a result, does that happen? Has there been like a one thing? Is it all cumulative, really, building on top of a previous success?
Yeah, I think most of the time it's all, for me, it's been all cumulative. But I know that the post that I was waiting for always, because I'd seen the effect on other businesses, is that influencer post. And so I'd seen all of my friends' businesses getting their Stacey Solomon hit, for example, their Mrs. Hinch, and they'd all got their products to them, and all it took is that one share on a story and their sales would just fly off. And I'm like, I was chasing that constantly. And so I've got a whole list of celebrities that have a whizzer and use a whizzer, and none of them were posting. And I knew that it would just take for them to post and I could pay off my debt. Whatever it was that I was terrified about that was coming up financially, I knew that if I could just get one of them to post, that would be it. And then as time went on and they weren't posting, and it was just a dagger every time, like, especially if I'd see them posting about other products, but I knew it was because they were getting paid crazy sums of money. So, and I could never afford that. So it was a waiting game, you know, like Giovanna Fletcher, for example. I trekked across London because I saw that she was doing a radio show, Virgin Radio. There's a lot of Virgin connections here.
Yeah.
And so I took my son and we went across and hand delivered one to the loading bay of Virgin Radio. And that's the kind of thing that I used to do. Like, I'd track these people down. You don't just, as a small business, get to be sent an address of a influencer or a celebrity and then send it and then, oh, there we go, there's your product on social media. No, you really have to go for it. And so I'd done that with Giovanna, and I had heard nothing. So I had no idea if she had got it. And it was only a few months ago when I saw she was hosting an awards ceremony. And, I just by chance, I was nominated for an award at that ceremony. And so I made sure I went there. And I got to talk to her after. And it turns out she'd been using the Whizzers for years. And she keeps them in the back of their car and she loves them. So had I not been in that position, I may never have known. But I managed to capture that content. Luckily, I had my friend on hand and she was videoing the whole conversation that I had with Giovanna Fletcher. And then I could use that on social media. But it still won't get the reach as if Giovanna posts it. Then it's like, done. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's so hard. And I think with social media, it is a case of chipping away, keeping consistent and with giving your audience something that's just not constantly about selling, but it is about your journey and what you're doing all the time and those wins that you have, but also how hard it is, because I just don't think that the average person would understand the reality of the really hard bits, the hard knocks that you get constantly. Every day there's a drama. When you're running a business, every day you open your emails and you're like, no, or whatever, like, and it doesn't stop.
I guess two things. One is, if we have any influencers listening, obviously please post about the Whizzer. But two, do you think there's still a bit of a taboo about, like, because it's sort of, I don't know, what would you call it, a sanitary product? I mean, kids wee into them. Do you feel like there's still a bit of kind of ick, oh no, we don't want to talk about it?
100%. When I see news topics that are trending, I can see that it is moving towards being able to be talked about more openly. And I'm hoping that by me doing things, more publicly and talking about the realities of it in relation to my product, that it will help move that conversation.
Absolutely. And one big opportunity was, of course, Dragon's Den, where you got to have kind of primetime TV slot to talk to these investors about your product and about the problems that you are solving. Can you tell us anything about that experience? So how did you find it pitching to them? Obviously you had a success, but like, how impactful has that been since? I don't know how much you can share, but tell us something.
So I was lucky. So first of all, let me tell you, the top two questions I'm always asked is, number one, are you doing an adult version? And number two, why don't you go on Dragon's Den? And I knew friends that had gone on Dragon's Den previous series before, so I knew what was involved, and I personally didn't feel like I was ready for it. I didn't feel like, I'd only been going with the business for a year since launching, and I didn't feel ready for it, despite me pitching all the time to investors. So when I got an email from the research team of Dragon's Den, I thought it was a hoax. And they were like, no, could you just send us your phone number? And I sent them my phone number and they called me straight away. It turns out it was real. And they said, would you ever consider applying for Dragon's Den? And I was like, yeah, I guess I would. And then like within a week, I was doing like this pitch whilst moving house as well. So like I just had boxes around me and I was just like doing this pitch that they then had to pass on to the producers. And I had to go through this like massive long due diligence process that went from, I think, about the February, because that would have been my 1 year, right up until when I filmed in the June. And then it's even then, like the whole process, you're told there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees that you'll get to this next stage, the next stage. And then I was given I think about a week or 2 weeks notice before I was like, right, you need to get to Manchester. You're going to be pitching this date. Can you make it? Yes, I can. And then you're literally on a train. You can't tell anyone, bearing in mind, no one knows. And I was, going up to Manchester. And again, for me being really on social media, everyone knows what I'm doing all the time. I'm like, I'm going to Manchester without Mason. But can't tell you why.
Mysterious purpose.
Yeah. And And so, yeah, and then it was a case of it's very, like, it's the BBC. So everything is managed so well. They're so supportive and everything's very kind of scheduled and organised. And you go in there, you're in your dressing room, and I was in like RuPaul's dressing room, and it was just very glam. And then you're practicing your pitch. You're doing all the edits of, you know, the walk-in, the lift scene, and all the bits that you see on Dragon's Den. When you're standing in there, you're like, I'm standing in the lift. Yeah, I'm pressing the button for the lift. Like, you're like, at the time, it's like an out-of-body experience. And then, so when you do it, and then the doors open, and then you see the dragon sitting there, you're like, is this real? And you have to nail it. There's no, oh, can I start again? Like, if you mess up on your pitch, which I did, despite me having pitched however many times I'd written my pitch, as always, like the night before I'd gone through it, like 1 o'clock in the morning, I was like, right, this is what I'm going to say. And then, and right to the beginning, at the end, just going in, I was like, asking my friend, right, tell me the numbers again. She was asking me, what this, what's that, gross, revenue, net, and I'm like, okay, I got this. And of course, as soon as I walked out, messed up my pitch, didn't I? So I fumbled because I had to, part of my pitch is saying the bit about me potty training, and then I mentioned my dad and I choked, and then it was after that, and I kept that bit in as well. And after that, I just went off on this other path. And I mean, I got it all in, thank goodness. But I was in there, standing there for an hour and a half. So you only see, 10 to 12 minutes of this pitch. But actually, I was there being grilled for an hour and a half. And afterwards, you're just like shaking. You're like, you know, walking away with 2 dragons as well. The 2 dragons that I'd gone in there saying that I wanted. And so when I walked away, I was like, wow. And you can't tell anyone either. So you can't, obviously I could tell Mason. But yeah, so the whole experience. And then you have to wait. Bearing in mind, you don't know if you're going to make the cut to screen, like, at all. So I thought that I initially it was going to air in September. So I was gearing up for that. That didn't happen, and then it was this waiting game. But I just carried on the business exactly the same as I always had. Didn't change a thing. Nothing changed. You know, you don't just get the investment. So I didn't just have an injection of 50 grand or whatever it is people think. I had to keep grafting, and like I said earlier, right up until I was about to go. And it was about to go live, I couldn't even afford my own stock. I'd applied to Starling Bank for an overdraft. They'd said no. And I was like, do you know what I'm just about to be, what's going to happen to me, Starling Bank?
You'll regret this.
Don't
you know who I am?
Yeah. I mean, are you not supposed to be the face of business banking for startups? And you can't even give me a loan so I can buy my stock. I'll remember that, Starling Bank, I will. And so I just had to wing it right until the end. But then the show came on, you know, I was scared to do the watch party because I didn't know what was going to make the cut. It could have been awful. They could have shown all my worst bits, but luckily, I mean, they added in a few bits of fumbled financials, but they kept it in, and I was so pleased with the edit because the rest, as they say, is history in terms of once it's out, and it was received really well with the media. And I mean, to get good headlines in like The Sun and the Daily Mail and things like that organically, you know, that's a win. And the sales that I got from Dragon's Den, that's what paid off all my debts. So had I not done that and put myself at that risk, then I wouldn't have got the business to where it was at all. So absolutely, so grateful for the entire experience.
No, it's amazing. And the fact that you were smart enough to leverage all of that positive impact and make the most of it and kind of to get yourself out there. I mean, that's basically what an entrepreneur does, isn't it? Make the most of the opportunities that they are given. And I'd love to know, just finally, Zoe, like, so what is next for the business? You've mentioned everyone asks you, are you doing an adult version? I think the answer is now yes. Can you tell us of what's coming down the pipe? Yeah, tell us.
So yeah, no, I to save my business before Dragon's Den aired, I had designed the adult whizzer. I just didn't have the money to manufacture it. So I launched it for pre-order, and I had the samples and I could show how it worked and all the rest of it. I just didn't have the money to fund it. So that's what Dragon's Den did. So Dragon's Den sales were all pre-orders for the adults. There's the kids I could send out straight away. But as soon as it hit, it turns out the adults whizzer I did more in sales of the adult version than I did of the kids. And so that proved that it was a needed product. And then I got that manufactured immediately and managed to pull it off in 8 weeks. And yeah, this is it. You can see it surrounding me there. But yeah, and it's exactly the same as the kids one. It's just that it's double the capacity. So you can still carry it around just the same, use it the same, but it's just double the capacity basically. And like I said, it's now people have had it for camping over summer. You don't need to leave the tent. Festivals, for example, it was on Channel 4 for being the thing to pack for a festival. So hopefully in 2024 and beyond, that is going to be the focus, is making sure that people know about it for things like camping and festivals, and every lorry driver knows about it. It's in every petrol station. I am still focusing on that Boots goal. I want to see it on the shelves of Boots.
Come on, Boots.
Come on. And then if there's the opportunity, I am looking at taking it internationally as well, because people, surprisingly, all over the world. Who knew? So there's no end to what can be done. It's just that currently I'm still doing it on my own. So as a solo founder, there's limits to what I can do, but there's always the hope that I can expand my team and get help on board, which is what I'm currently doing.
Zoe, it's so exciting. And you know what I love about this story and what I love about you is that it all sort of came from kind of quite a hard time in your life. You were taking care of your dad, you were cleaning up after your dad, you were cleaning up after your son. And for a lot of people who have caring responsibilities, the fact that those tasks that are so hard ended up giving you this idea for this, like, what is going to be a world-beating business. That's such a beautiful, poignant journey, and so meaningful for anyone listening who's in the same sort of situation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I've loved talking to you.
Oh, I've loved talking to you. It's been very therapeutic. I feel like I've just had a therapy session. So thank you for letting me offload on you.
Huge thanks to Zoe for bringing her unique perspective on overcoming obstacles, harnessing creativity, all to achieve staggering success. What an authentic and resilient entrepreneur. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, please let us know on the socials. Tag Sage and use the hashtag SoundAdvicePodcast. See you again in a fortnight.